Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today with a Battlefield 1 Firearms Focus. Today we'll be taking a look at the BERGMANN MG1915 n.A, or new art or new model light machine gun. Let's start by talking about the real history behind this LMG. It was originally designed by Louis Schmeisser, who was the chief small arms designer at Bergmann Industries in Seoul, Germany during World War I. Schmeisser was looking to build the Germans an answer to the US designed and British manufactured and adopted Lewis gun. He would start by modifying one of his water-cooled guns into an air-cooled belt-fed design, which would become known as the Model 1915. This weapon would fire from an open bolt position and in early testing show poor reliability. Schmeisser would quickly go back to the drawing board and redesign the weapon to fire from a closed bolt, along with making other modifications to improve its reliability. Thus, the Model 1915 n.A would be born, a 200-round belt-fed machine gun that could use non-disintegrating cloth belts, which were also compatible with the Maxim MG08 type machine guns, or its own proprietary metallic belts. The weapon itself would be issued in limited numbers to German field troops, and while it would see widespread use, it would really never be comparable to the Maxim machine gun. It would never see the same level of adaptation as many of the Maxim model machine guns. It would eventually be put out of production in 1918 as the Great War would come to an end. Now, in-game, in the case of Battlefield 1, it is referred to as the MG15 n.A. In the instance of the footage that you guys are seeing today, I am carrying what they call the suppressor variant, which is essentially your standard MG1915 n.A with a optic on it. Now, optic technology development and growth and research was a big part of World War I, and we saw a lot of advancements in this field during World War I. I was unable to hunt down, at least in a reasonable amount of time, any information about this specific optic. I will not deny its existence. I'm sure it did exist in some degree. I'm sure we saw a lot of, 1x, 2x low zoom optics like this one, experimental or otherwise. Whether or not they were ever affixed or equipped to a light machine gun is well beyond my knowledge. But nonetheless, they make this specific variant of the MG15 in Battlefield 1 exceptionally powerful, especially as a support weapon. It comes equipped with that same 200-round drum magazine as its real-life counterpart, using what looks to be the proprietary metal belts. The bipod is attached to the weapon's barrel cooling shroud, indicating it's based on an earlier implementation of the MG1915, because the bipod would eventually be moved to the weapon's receiver, as it was found to be too flimsy, mounted that far down the barrel shroud. When firing this weapon in controlled bursts, it is incredibly accurate in-game. In some instances, actually in a lot of cases, I was able to reach out to bolt-action rifle range. Just, go ahead and set your height for bullet drop and fire 5-6 round bursts at a time, and you will eventually kill your target. I harassed a lot of scouts in this way, and this was one of the big reasons this weapon quickly became one of my favorite weapons in the Battlefield 1 beta. Now, when you go ahead and deploy this weapon in a brace position via the bipod, you can fire it in extended bursts with little loss to accuracy. But much like all of the automatic weapons in Battlefield 1, it can and will overheat in those extended fire situations, forcing the player to cease firing for about 3 to 4 seconds while the weapon cools itself down. This is something you're going to want to keep in mind when engaging targets in close quarters with this. Not only is it more effective to fire in bursts for the sake of accuracy and controllability, but you really don't want to see this thing overheat when you're engaging targets, at a distance where you could be engaged at close range with melee even, because there's nothing more embarrassing and ironic, in my opinion, than having a 200-round drum magazine and having the weapon be unable to fire when you still have 150 rounds left in it. So keep that in mind when the full release goes live. Controlled bursts are absolutely the way to go with this thing. Like I said, you could get into some really heavy fire, full auto, extended fire bursts. But honestly, anything past 5 or 6 rounds, the accuracy drop-off that I saw was really significant. And you'll probably see some of that in this footage. I was really experimenting and noticing that first, 5-6 round bursts. Those just can be ridiculously accurate. I mean, I'm talking upper body headshot type stuff, especially with that little optic on there. In most medium, even the long-range engagements, you can do some precision fire with this thing. It makes it super, super powerful. But as soon as you start just, really spraying, you're going to see a lot of bullet deviation, even out to just medium range engagements, and you're going to end up landing a lot less kills. So controlled bursts are absolutely the way to go with this thing. As I said, this would end up being my favorite weapon across all of the classes, all of the weapons that were available in Battlefield 1. This was my go-to. There's just something about it that I found excessively enjoyable. I love playing the support gunner role. I love locking down a position like C on Sinai Desert, going from house to house, you know, window to window, just mowing down incoming attackers as they try and capture the point from us. It was a lot of fun, and it was even more fun, as I said earlier on, to really harass some of those scouts sitting out on the arch on Sinai or out on some of the cliff sides, just constantly suppressing them. Even if I wasn't getting kills, I was getting suppression assists, and you just know that was driving them absolutely crazy, and that's kind of satisfying. All in all, the weapon was really powerful in the beta. I don't know if they're going to do any modifications or if they're going to balance it at all in the game's full release. I really like the position it was in currently, but if I, you know, was trying to be honest, the weapon could possibly use reduction to accuracy when fired in a hipfire situation in close quarters. I actually found it to be really effective hip firing in close quarters, but again, I was using controlled burst, so maybe the player should be rewarded for being able to use it in a situation like that without panicking. Nonetheless, very interested to see just how this thing controls and plays with all of the attachments and modification options that we'll have in BF1's full release in just a couple weeks. Now, Firearms Focus is going to be an extensive series that I'm going to do for Battlefield 1. We're going to try and take a look at all of the weapons, primary and secondary, available in the Battlefield 1 full release. If you guys have any suggestions, any weapons that you particularly enjoyed in the beta that you'd love to see me try and cover at the top of this list as we move into BF1's full release, please feel free to throw your suggestions down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.